So that practiced resilience that I had done really needed to be a billboard sign because with his passing being spontaneous, I mean, he passed away on a Sunday morning playing football in front of my entire family. And that afternoon, I had to do a board meeting and get our CPA and all of our team and our leadership teams together from all the businesses we ran
Mm.
to say, we have to make a plan.
Welcome back to the Sales Gravy podcast. I'm Jeb Blount Jr. filling in for Jeb Blount Sr. And today we have an inspiring guest, an incredible guest. I met her at Outbound Conference this year and was blown away by the story that she told me. And I know that you are going to get a lot from it. But before we get started, I wanted to direct you to Sales Gravy University. Sales Gravy University is the most powerful learning platform for sales professionals on the market. It gives you access to 1,000 hours of sales training content from prospecting all the way to closing and negotiating and leadership from 45 plus of the world's leading experts in sales, while also giving you the opportunity to join live sales training classes every week of every month of every year with Sales Gravy Master Sales Trainers. This is perfect for sales teams. This is perfect for individuals. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, go take a course for free on Sales Gravy University using code PODCAST. It's learn.salesgravy.com. That's learn.salesgravy.com. And we look forward to having you on the platform. Today, we've got Miss Deborah Ann Sellinger. Deborah Ann, I'll go back and forth. I met you as Deb, but you were at Outbound Conference this year, and we had a great conversation, but you are running a business right now that is not necessarily an industry that Sales Gravy has ever really interviewed, so it's really unique. You have a great influence in your community. You were telling me about everything that you do in Maine, which is where you're from. But why were you at Outbound Conference in 2024? Because I think that's a really interesting place to start.
Sure. So I have the privilege of having had a really remarkable system in my sales career. And that is because fairly early on in my career path, I joined a company called Mary Kay Cosmetics. And Mary Kay Cosmetics has a very clear and transparent way to develop yourself. And so I loved that opportunity. I love that you could ask people, how do you get that pink Cadillac? And nobody would surprise you with the answer. The systems were all there and it was just plug and play. The question was always, are you willing to do it? And so, in that world, which I resided in for about 16 years, I had owned companies prior to that, but I always had to self educate. And so, having that opportunity at Mary Kay really was a godsend. And that pink culture has carried over and really created the nucleus of how I run all my businesses and how I stay motivated, et cetera. So when I want to keep motivated, one of my key touch points is to read. So I stumbled on your dad's book, and I didn't actually know till I went to the conference that that book was written a few years ago. I mean, I saw it at the airport. It was prominently featured, and it grabbed my attention, Fanatical Prospecting. And I thought, there's just a few books in my mind. I read constantly. I'm always 20, 30 books in the hole on a shelf on any given time. I just have a habit of just picking up books. And your dad's book is definitely one of those icon books that I have passed along to people. And so I read Fanatical Prospecting and fell in love with it. Went and looked your dad up, said, I got to see this guy in person. And I saw that conference. And when I started reading what that conference was about, we're a home-owned business in Maine, regional to Maine, and then we're run as a family, just like you and your dad. So my son-in-law works with me and has a special spot in my long-term planning and has had a much smaller world to learn from. I'm just the one person that's been the resources for him. And some of the things that I encourage and reinforce, I could see were very prominently featured in your conference and the embodiment of your curriculum and stuff. So I thought, man, if this can give him the vision, because there's those snapshot moments where you take someone to an event like your dad's and it just lights them on fire. Outbound had that potential to do that. I know for me and Mary Kay, coming from Maine, it's a rural state, and I hate to put down my own state, but a lot of times when I'd be trying to encourage my downline people to go to a conference, many of them had never gone out of our state,
Mm,
never mind being on a plane.
mm.
So I really would encourage them to go. And it was oftentimes a catapult or a tipping point. So I did my little prayers and hopes that that could be maybe the ignition for Eric because he hasn't caught the vision. I was born a visionary. So I've always thought way loftier than most people I hang around with. And I wanted to get him that exposure. So it did it, it nailed it.
Eh,
And it really delivered much bigger dividends than I even hoped for. I was so impressed with the entire experience of that conference. And I don't say that lightly. I've gone to so many over the years with different facilitators. Um, this culture is ridiculously, awesomely organized. I just was so impressed. So I laughed, and Eric's feet have not touched the ground. We're creating our own mastermind groups. We're doing some of your live groups. But as soon as I was reading the book, I went and started doing the Sales Gravy podcast. I've, gone backwards and listened to a bunch of them and then signed up for that conference. And I'm going to be, a go to everything club as far as what you guys put forward because it's such an amazing platform. And I'm not getting paid to say that. It really is just awesome. It really is.
we
So
have
we're
no
junkies now. We're Sales Gravy junkies.
I'm glad you're saying it because we have no marketing budget except for all of you. So remember to like, share, give 5 stars, talk about
It's
it to
true.
the stars. If you're praying at night, like tell God a little bit about what we got
Oh
going on.
yeah, and I'm like getting people into my dashboard. I'm like, see why you have to have this. And stepson is getting his first sales gig, and I love selling. It's my favorite thing to do in the whole wide world. So I love the process. I love the psychology. I love all the nuances of it, and it doesn't matter to me. I've done so much of it in my career, be it little or small. I'm just as excited when I own my fitness studios. Just as excited about selling a $500 fitness package for 6 months as I am about signing someone up for a $500,000 contract. It's the same experience. And just really having that conviction that overrides that person's objection, that you just get that inner confidence that you just know that what you have will give them value, right? And so when you have something you're excited about and you find the right match for it and it's a good fit, I've had a lot of like thank yous from my son-in-law Eric, who just, was microphone happy there. He was so engaged, he was so excited, and I kind of dragged him there, but it didn't take but a couple of hours of being at that conference in one of the smallest sessions your dad did that it just got him ignited. And he's come back and he's just like he's a sales gravy culture believer as well. But we're having all kinds of people log in and we're like, you need to buy this, you need to get on this. We own other companies as well, and I'm influencing other people to jump on. But you definitely going to those events is going to make a big difference for them to have that conviction. I think that's going to be paramount for them to really become steady as a subscriber. I think.
I like it as a tipping point, and I have this as well in my career where you need to read that book or you have to watch the video or the podcast that comes up. It doesn't have to be the conference, but the conference certainly helps because it's more of like you invested in this. You might as well enjoy it while you're there, and so it gives you a little bit more energy to keep moving. And I want to go back to your energy because you are, by all accounts, a serial entrepreneur. Deb, you got a problem. I don't know how to, I don't know I don't know how else to put it, but you got a problem. You've started so many businesses, and you've been successful. I think you've talked to me about some of the failures that you've had as well.
Yeah.
But you start at Mary Kay, and Mary Kay is, for those who don't know, one of the premier selling organizations that's ever been started ever. It started out of Dallas, Texas. From what I understand, I read a book in college, so forgive me. But and the people that come out of that organization are really successful in other sales organizations that they join because the fundamentals that they learn. So Mary Kay is a great way to learn how to run a business without the maybe all the risks of running a business. Maybe from your experience. So what did you learn from the pink culture that helped you into the several businesses that you ended up running before you got to where you are right now?
So, um, when you get to the higher tier levels for Mary Kay, got to consider that for a very small minority make it to the higher levels. And the reason is most people's wants and needs for why they subscribe to become a consultant as an independent contractor for Mary Kay are going to be for social. I used to tell women when I would recruit them, I'd say, They'd say, "I have to talk to my husband. I have to see if it's okay." I'd say, "What does your husband do for fun? Does he golf? Does he bowl?" "Yeah, yeah." "Okay, does he ask you to justify it by making, money? Do I have to make money if I'm gonna do bowling, honey?" And your answer would be what? "Well, of course you don't have to make money to do bowling. So you're actually gonna have a hobby that's gonna make you money. So do you really need his permission? Because think about it. You're asking him, can I make this household money while I have fun?" And then they go, "Oh no, you're right. Okay, yeah, I know, I get it." Because it's natural for, I think, a female to think they have to ask, right?
Mm.
Where a guy comes home and says, "Honey, I joined a bowling league." So a little bit different. Um, so I think, that's what most people want, right? And it could be a supplemental income for a lot of my consultants. It was supplemental income. I need to make, if I could make like $400 a month or whatever. And so what happened in Mary Kay is when I came into Mary Kay, I was challenged with money management. I lived on the edge. One thing I'm especially proud of in my new world and several years ongoing is that we're completely debt free. We owe nobody anything. We self fund everything. Everything we own.
Woo!
Free. Woo, woo. That's a big dog deal. So back then we lived on the edge, and that's one of the things I talked to my son-in-law about. He has a pretty cushy income here. And I said to him, things are going to change dynamically. It's your dad's fault. But I told him, I said, you don't know what your talent potential is until you live on the edge. And so my late husband used to say I was always the primary breadwinner. People would come to our home. "What a beautiful home. What does your husband do?" That's the
Uh-huh,
refrain that
uh-huh,
a woman
yeah,
hears.
right.
"What's your husband do?" And I'm like, and if my husband was there, he's very humble about it. So he'd say, "Before you do that, why don't you ask my wife what she
Yeah,
what she
yeah.
does?" So I guess the bottom line is, being hungry, right? So to move into the upper levels, what did the pink culture create? Um, they called it the Bidia Club, but I do it anyway. So they had this funny term, golden ovaries. You got to be tough. And so you test it by fire on little scale, right? You start and you go, okay, that was it. You walk into a class and everybody there is not really excited about what you came in to do. Maybe the hostess was, but you're the entertainment solution for the night. But you're working this like it's going to be your inevitable career. And down the road, it was my career, right? And my household relied on it as a primary source of income. So to really get yourself into that place where I decided that I was going to assess all of my appointments based on the impact that I had. So I could have an awesome experience for myself and for the people that were part of those Mary Kay parties based on a zero class because I learned, like your dad teaches, to turn over every rock, which that was a big Mary Kay promotion was what is the opportunity that I could be missing? Okay. Nobody has any money here. Could be something that you walk away from and say, I was a zero appointment. I got nothing to go with. Or you take those sales gravy tactics and put them into play and you go, you know what? There's a lot of opportunity here. All these people are broke. They need money. I need to recruit them and get the money in their households.
I
Um,
like
these
it, I like that.
these people can be great hostesses because they have no money. So if I offer a really cool incentive, just based on attendance, you get me this amount of people, but I don't want these people recycled. It has to be new people. And I want people that have spending money. So get me in front of people. Who do you know that would spend money if they had the same experience you did? So getting that culture created, getting people thinking, that creativity. So Mary Kay had the objection wheel. I used to say to my consultants, I want to be able to wake you up in the middle of the night and have you quickly be able to come the six most common objections. So when I watch like some of the courses that Eric's now taking that I'm doing with him, it's so familiar to me and exciting to me that it's not particular to a world, but more generic, but just as effective. So that's really the pink culture laid the platform. And one of the things that I did is I moved up so quickly that a lot of the things that I didn't know that I had earned or had that new privilege because I was so laser being focused on something at a higher level that when people would, we go to Mary Kay events, and this is kind of a funny set aside, but they used to call it the Panty Line Club. If you had your name badge on your shoulder, which is what they did, and your ribbons went down to the top of your panty line, you were the shizzle for rizzle. Mine would go down way below my panty line onto my thigh. So people would walk around, and I used to feel kind of silly because they'd be like, "How'd you do that? What's Emerald Club?" I'm like, "I have no idea. I just opened up my packet, and there were like all these ribbons, and I just attached them all." but I really don't. And they're like, "You, oh, so you qualify for that lunch?" And I'm like, "Oh, when's that?
I
Tomorrow?"
That's awesome.
So
That's so
it's
cool.
just learning, those things. So in a smaller platform, it's learning how to be resilient, to understand that there's a learning opportunity. I have a favorite thing that I still employ today that I recommend people do, and it's a unique style of journaling. And so I take a journal. I like to buy the pretty ones like everybody else. And you face in and you start writing your good takeaways for the day. Why do you feel like $1 million today? What's going right? When things aren't going right, I turn it around and I flip it upside down. So now I'm opening the book upside down, opposite orientation. And that's a Deb upside down day. Why does it matter? What I had to master in order to be successful was to recognize what my natural problem areas were. What's my challenges for me? Because we all have our own and they're never going to go away. You're
Mm,
going to have that natural unfolding where you'll run back to some of the habits that are intrinsically who you are, right?
mm,
Whatever those are. And so when I'm at the top of the mountain, I'm writing all the good stuff. Those are the reminders I need to go back and visit when I'm in the hole. I got to be reminded of my awesomeness and my accomplishments because today's a dark day. On the other hand, when you're at riding a good wave, it's easy to get too confident in the moment.
yeah.
And so going back and revisiting the upside down day shows me clearly what I have for natural preponderance in the wrong direction, how I corrected that situation, what the key components were that I learned, because I just really get frustrated when I have to learn the lesson again, and we all do. So visiting those days keeps me real, keeps me grounded, keeps me focused, and keeps me attentive to the potential pitfalls that I'm going to encounter again. Because when I'm just riding the wave, those things will come back, right?
So when you're journaling like that and you say dark days?
Yeah, the
Okay,
upside down
cool. The
days. Yeah,
upside
that's
down
why I do the
days?
upside down journal. Instead of having a separate journal, I do the upside down journal concept.
So it makes sense. Keeps it all in one place. I think for people like me, and it sounds like for people like you having two notebooks, I'm just gonna end up not writing in either of them and looking at both and trying to figure out which notebook I want to choose. Um, the upside down days when you're in a place where you're doing really well, you've got a lot of momentum. Uh, how do you put yourself in a position to read the dark days, the upside down days? It must not be easy to go, you know what? I'm on top of the mountain. Let me go ruin my day and read something that wasn't so great from my past. What is
Yeah,
your process to kind of get yourself in a place where you're going to humble yourself on purpose?
I think that it's easier as I'm older to be humble more as a continuum. And I think that's because I have a lot more self-awareness
Hmm,
and I still find new things. Like I just talked to like I have a couple of people that I really trust in my tribe and I just had this like epiphany aha moment and I have the nicest people in my life. And so sometimes they'll point it out, hey, here's a flaw you haven't probably figured out, but I'm going to just tell you kind of thing. Sometimes it's blunt, sometimes it's kind of cushion. But I had this like big self awareness recently, and I wish I could remember what it was. But when I started talking to people about it, they were like, "Yeah, we already knew that about you." I'm like, "We thought you knew that too," and I can't remember what it was now. But I was like, "Really? Like you guys knew this about me, and
and
I didn't
didn't
even know?"
tell me?
And nobody like there's it was. I guess it's something that at face value everybody thought I knew about myself. So I'm like, now I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So Mary Kay also really taught progression, and one of the things I really I am naturally a visionary, but Mary Kay was very a visionary company, right?
Mm,
And
mhm,
so the silly things I did, like you know, I remember wanting a pink Cadillac, and you can't drive any free cars in Mary Kay unless you're a free car driver. But there's a lots of levels in the career car path for Mary Kay.
mm,
And people don't know that. They only know the icon color pink
right,
Cadillac. So my first car was a red Grand Am, but I wanted the feeling. So very quickly on, I said, I'm getting that pink car. And in our state, we only had three. Some states are very prolific with them because they have a lot more population
right.
density and more success stories. But Maine, there were three in my home state. And I was like, I want to be number four.
Yeah.
So I because I was a career car driver, I was able to borrow somebody who drove the pink Cadillac. And I took it to my old neighborhood. And I drove up to the first house of one of my friends and said, "Hey, what do you think?" And she said, "Oh my gosh, I always knew you were going to do it. I never doubted it." Took it to another one and she said, "I never thought you would do it. I thought you were crazy." da 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 da. And each one, as I told them, the truth after, okay, so I don't really have one yet, but thanks for believing in me. Okay, well, I don't really have one yet, but now I know what you think of me. I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
So Mary Kay set that cornerstone for me to really start doing that. And I think really taught me to understand what my message was, which is I want to make impact. So some of my favorite results came from me journaling. I remember saying, and this is a powerful tool no matter what you're selling, um, write down where 10 no's took you, looking for that opportunity. Let's journal over the 10 no's. So I got a no out of this, but I asked for referrals, and now I'm going to chase that rabbit trail. So I'm going to start journaling. Okay, this customer said no, but I asked for referrals. This referral gave me the chance to meet. This referral turned into this, and these referrals turned into that. And I remember getting like several months in, and I had to abandon that whole exercise because it was so crazy to keep track of that I couldn't even do it anymore. But the success was crazy. But what I proved to myself was that my average no for me in Mary Kay, which is a much smaller world than I swim with now with the bigger dollars that I swim with, same concept, bigger
Right.
number, was $10,000. So I was really excited about a
Wow.
$10,000 no. So I didn't see no as a negative anymore. And I think when I look at that journaling, it doesn't feel like a crash and a depression because with every day that I have moments, I will go back and finish that story. I leave myself room in the journal to finish that story and say what I thought was, going to end up as a negative result. This, and this happened. I'll keep adding to it until there's no more room because now I'm bunching up towards that next entry that I have. And I go, okay, I'm just going to be in that. But it lets me see what looked like a dark day. It sees recovery. So I don't just put the blah, I put the recovery in there.
Mm.
And that's the message I need to remind myself when things are going right, this will happen. I'm going to run out of prospects if I don't do this. So, and you have those patterns, whether it's people you communicate with, this people that I know that when I'm in the hole, I don't talk to those people because they love to take the shovels out with you and they'll dig it deeper for you.
Misery
So,
loves company. It
certain people
does.
I know, I was really grateful when they invented caller ID because now I knew I could actually like, okay, this is not the day. We'll
What
wait for a great day to talk to them.
what I've learned from you is unrelenting positivity, and it's not positivity without understanding where it comes from. You know that there are no's, and those are negatives, but because you have a negative, there are positive results from it, and you can always see past the immediate, the thing that stumps most people, the thing that holds people up the most is they get a no, and even myself, I'll admit this too. You get a no, and you stop, but you keep going. I'll just push a little bit further and say, okay, that no resulted in something
I'm
more
curious. It's
positive.
like a curiosity, right? Like, what can come of this? What am
Yeah,
I supposed to learn, or what can come from this? And one of the things that I would tell people all the time, like it was like when I would teach classes for Mary Kay, I had that privilege of mentoring, right? That's a really fun thing to do. And I remember teaching a class one day, and the people that were in the class were like, how do you keep yourself motivated? And I said, I have breakfast every day with people that are millionaires. I said, I have lunch every day with people that are millionaires. I hang around with millionaires in my free time. And they're like, where do you get around all these millionaires? I'm like, books, podcasts, asking for interviews with people that I would love to switch places with because of their success story. But I said, mostly books, mostly podcasts, mostly, audiobooks. This is such an enrichment to our lives that I think it's a waste of time to have anything else but a sales gravy on in your car. Like, I got to drive 25 minutes to get to an appointment. I can either be listening to music that I personally will never remember the words. And if I did, I'd probably be appalled by them. Or I can learn something that's going to give me value. And you know how many times in my life, Jeb, that I've I now have a disclaimer. In fact, I did it when I was at your dad's conference, and one of the authors that was there said, "No, you didn't make that up." Because I said, I no longer know if I'm original. I'll say,
yeah.
I think this is my idea, but because I've just absorbed everything, over the years, decades of doing that, there aren't a lot of original ideas left, right? So I say, I think this is my saying, but full disclaimer, I'm not sure if it is anymore. And I'd even do that, in Mary Kay or other people go, "Oh, you read so and so's book?" And I'm like, "Yes. Why are you saying that?" Because you just quoted something that they taught. I'm like, "Oh, I did. I didn't. I read that like 15 years ago." So yeah, so
I
it's that kind of thing.
it's incredible. I mean, academics, they say stand on the shoulders of giants, and the circle of knowledge is this, and you need to be just a little bump on the edge of the circle of knowledge. And most everything that you need to know about humanity is already written down by another human being. There's very few original ideas, and it's inspiring to know that you can hang out with the people that are going to make your life different without having to go find people to actually hang out with. You read their books, you listen to their podcasts, and yeah, you're right. Windshield time is wasted time if you're not using it right. If you're not in the car listening to, and I'm not going to say sales gravy, but like if you're not listening to a Simon Sinek, if you're not listening to people like Deb on this podcast and getting their knowledge, you're behind. You're behind the people who are pushing and open and uncovering opportunities under every single rock. You literally uncover every rock. You leave nothing behind. I don't know many people who have a story like yours. Can you just like run through a list of the businesses that you've started or ran or been in? Can you just like kind of give people a scope of the things that you, you have thrown yourself into over the years?
Sure. And I'll give you like one big cliffhanger for you asked specifically about what I learned in Mary Kay, and I've had to practice that multiple times in my life. But every month you start from point zero in Mary Kay. So as you build your empire, your pink empire, your money, your real money making in Mary Kay doesn't come from selling lipstick. It comes from recruiting people
Mm,
and getting excited and passionate about empowering other people to be successful. And some of it's a risk and a gamble because as people build up, they pull away. When they pull away, they drop some of your income down on the theory that they're going to build a bigger group and you'll get the residual off that. So it's always one of those confidence and faith building. I've had people that, power sellers, but they're making a fraction of the cost. So when my mom passed away, that was a real test for me because it's the first time that I'd ever had to deal with something really, really significant as an impact that I was self-employed and that my household relied on my income
mm.
as a primary. And I remember everybody who knew me that said, you got to take time. Like, you're going to regret this. You'll be on a shrink's couch 20 years from now if you don't deal with the day. And da 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 da. And so many people telling me, having an opinion, how I needed to handle this. Because it was a quick journey from the time she got diagnosed to the time she passed was less than 30 days. So
Oh wow.
there was no preparing for it. And I was just in my 30s. I was young. So I didn't have any experience with having lost someone significant like that. So, I remember, pulling over in my pink Cadillac and just I call it booger river crying, that kind of crying, that very ugly, don't want anybody in public to see you like you need 7 tissues, it's just coming out. And, and I would go home and I would cancel my appointments because I was self-employed, and then I thought, I really wanna be a person of light, so I'm not a person of light right now, so I'm not gonna go anywhere, do anything, so I kept taking time off and extending it and extending it. And, my late husband was very much shoot from the hip kind of guy, and I hid from him as much as I could how truly down in the hole I was because,
Mm.
again, I try to be a person of light. And he said to me one day, "I know what's going on, I know I don't know everything, but I got a good idea." And I said, "Yeah? What do you think's going on?" He goes, "You've lost your essential self right now. The light's out. You gotta find it."
Mm.
And he said, "I'm telling you right now, what's not gonna work is what you're doing because it's not working." So he said, "What are you afraid of?" And I said, "Well, everybody, was saying, you're so busy all the time and you do so much. And so you need to just take time and really like deal with this." And he goes, "Well, my first question is, how's that working for you?" And at this point, it was like, I don't know, several weeks in, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. And I said, "Well, it's not working so far." He said, "And more importantly, let's look at the facts of a regular everyday person." He goes, "If my mom passed away, how long do you think my boss would give me? Truly.
Yeah.
And then how long do you think before he'd expect me to be productive and up to standards of what he's used to? Do you think it'd be weeks?" He said, "I think days, and I have a compassionate and I have a caring boss." So I'm just going to throw that on you that you have a compassionate, caring boss because you're your own boss and you're smart. So why don't you fake it till you feel it? get back out there,
Mm.
try to be the person that you always were, but you're going to have a different level of humanity now. You're going to have greater compassion, greater sympathy, greater empathy. I think it's going to make you more effective in your recruiting processes and in everything you do. That's my theory, knowing you. But remember this lesson, because he said, this is going to be an important part of your journey. And little did I know that he would pass away as well,
Mm.
in a different time in my life and with no pre-advanced situation to show that that was going to happen. It was a very spontaneous thing that happened. So for me, that recovery, that journey was about 6 months to even get quasi-normal. But I
Wow.
remember being skittish about doing appointments, and I remember walking into an appointment that I had done the booger river crying right before I went in, and I cleaned up and I still had a puffy face. And I walked in, and the lady, when I walked in, said, I had approached her in the grocery store. I said, I love your lipstick. You're cute as a button. I'd like to put you in my portfolio. I'll give you a free lipstick and probably some other free stuff if you're nice to me and let me come over and do a makeover with you and put you in my before and after book. And she said, oh, that sounds like fun. And when I got there that day, she goes, don't feel bad, but I don't want to do this appointment. And I said, oh, okay. I'm like, this is awkward. And I had talked myself into it, crying that whole
Right,
morning.
right.
And she said, I just saw you as a person of light and I need you in my life. And so if you want to do the Mary Kay facial thing, that's fine. But my brother just moved in with me. He just went through a bad divorce and he found out he has terminal cancer. So he moved in with me for me to take care of him. And I just needed to spend time in your space because just seeing you at the grocery store, there's just something about you that made me feel like you could make me have a good day. And I need a good day right now. We became great friends, by the way,
Hmm.
and she did become a great customer. So I think that those layers built me to have even more of that. Some people would say, I think resilience can be crafted. I think it can be built. Some people are like, is that fake? I don't feel like I'm fake. I feel like I've become a master crafter at intentfully putting aside the things that the everyday person will let them use as a reason to not make impact. I can say that, it's easier for me than it's ever been, but it's not a perfected science. We're still human, right?
Yeah.
But even with my husband now, it's so funny because we'll be like in the middle of a heated debate and then I've got to make a call and I like put that on hold and I come back and then I get to deal with what we were talking about. And it's like, we're picking up the ball, but I thought you were over it because no, I'm over it for that person. I'm not gonna let this contaminate over here. This is a whole different situation, but now
Yeah.
we're back to dealing with this one. You know what I mean? So it's a
Absolutely.
skill. It's a
It,
skill.
the resilience part, it's I would like to dive a little bit deeper into that. The booger crying before you get into an
Booger
appointment.
River crying.
Yeah,
That's a
booger
new
river
phrase.
crying.
You put it in your sales gravy, university.
You know what? It might, sales is a tough game, so I'm sure there's a lot of people who would understand that, and I think that more primarily they would understand. Do you feel like suddenly you've lost that light, you've lost the core essence of who you are, and you're walking into a meeting, and and for corporate salespeople, you're going on an appointment and you're like, I just don't want to do this today. Like, I don't want to have this 3 p.m. appointment. Don't want to have this 4 p.m. appointment. It's 4 p.m. on a Friday and you haven't performed all week. You've had a bunch of dark days. You haven't been journaling, but you probably should have been upside down doing that. And it's the last meeting and, it's the end of the quarter and you just don't feel like, like there's no hope there. So why are you even doing this? And then having the resilience to understand, and Deb, like that story just resonates with me, is that it's not about you. Like, just stop thinking about
That's
yourself for five
exactly right.
seconds. Like, that person that you're
Exactly
walking
right.
into, whether or not they treat you well is out of your control, but you may change their business. You may change their life if you sell things like Mary
One
Kay.
tip, one takeaway thought. And I used to love that in the hallways of Mary Kay. And we'd go to like a convention or something, and someone say, "Hey, you, me, yeah, you. I took your class this past spring, and I won a car, and it's these two tips you gave me." And that's exciting, to know that you inspired someone to take an initiative in a new area or, take a challenge on themselves or try to improve. It can be that one takeaway. And that's always my solid prayer going into Sales Gravy. I was really quiet for me. So I'm really surprised I got asked. I feel like this is a God thing that I got asked to be on the podcast. I was really quiet for me. I wasn't really spotlighting myself. So I'm like, I don't know how I ended up here. But that message to make impact carried through consistently over the years. When my late husband passed away, at that time. So in my journey, I've done daycare when my kids were little. And I had a motivational speaking business that I did for a number of years. But when I got in my early 40s, I encountered some health issues and I went on my own journey. I was driving pink Cadillacs. And then my husband was teasing me because I had an open floor plan in my house. And he said, Honey, you're spending more time coaching people for weight loss and for wellness for free than you ever are doing for Mary Kay right now. And I'm like, and he's like, I think you're building a business model. You might want to take a look at that. And I was like, a business model? I have a fully enriched career. He's like, I know, but there's something about the way you light up that you haven't lit up that way about Mary Kay in a little bit. And I'm like, I haven't? He's like, well, if you'd have asked me before, I wouldn't have thought anything was wrong. But now that I have something to compare to, I see there's a few level of sparks that have been missing.
Uh,
Maybe you're complacent. Maybe you've hit the pinnacle of what you can do with your Mary Kay for the geography you live in, et cetera. So he goes, I don't know. I think you should check that out. So a lot of earnest prayer, whatever. Did that 1 year curriculum. Started my coaching and wellness company, and in 6 months we did a 500,000 in just coaching services. No product to sell.
no, I'm sorry. In what time frame?
6 months.
Six
We did
months. You
half
did a
a
half
million
a million.
in services only. Yeah.
Good for you.
So it went crazy fast, and that was always a challenge. So that was called Men to Body Solutions, and that program ended up becoming national because people that lost weight would take dressing room pictures, whatever.
Hmm.
Facebook was really, a vehicle for that, and so we would have a person put, "Hey, I'm fitting into size sixes for the first time in 20 years, and this is my old pants." And one side by side picture, someone would post on Facebook, and then the phone would be ringing. We had a three local radio stations that we would go to every week and visit each one of them. They were all housed in the same building, owned by
Hmm.
the same ship group. And we'd go and be on the air, and we wouldn't even be back to our home office. And we'd have like 100 people that signed up for our program
Wow.
on our website. So it was just crazy. And be that as it may, my impact is not financial. I've really done well financially for someone who really doesn't care about making money.
That might be
Um,
that might be some of the key.
yeah, I really just love making impact. So, just knowing that our program helped deliver that. But the challenge for me is it grew too big too fast. So,
Mm.
my husband passed away. It was a fairly easy and unemotional decision because we had chiropractors that were selling our program. We had a lot of nurses and doctors that were asking to become coaches for our program. We had 350 wellness coaches across the country. And I felt like I was managing an empire that was beyond my vision, and it wasn't the vision I had. The vision I
Yeah.
had was I really loved connecting with the people, getting into the nitty-gritty like your dad. I love educating. I love seeing that return on what I'm investing. And I was so far up the food chain that I never talked to real people anymore. But after he passed away and I started changing that business model to manage his company,
Mm.
um, what happened was we had to do some crazy, Jeb. We had to answer the phone and have pseudonyms because my husband had just passed away. So if people knew that I was actually the one they were talking to, they would say things like, I heard the owner, her husband passed away. And I'd say, yeah, do you know what happened? I'd say, I really don't feel comfortable sharing. And I had pseudonyms, and so did my daughter and my son-in-law. We were in it together and we had dark humor about it. We get off the phone and go, oh my God, could we just blow their mind away if they just knew that who they were talking to, you know what I mean? And then I told all my staff, we had my husband's glass company, which is now Rebirth. That we'll talk about that in a minute. But
Mm.
I had to, over the course of the week after he passed, you can't just shut the door down. So that practiced resilience that I had done really needed to be a billboard sign because with his passing being spontaneous, I mean, he passed away on a Sunday morning playing football in front of my entire family. And that afternoon, I had to do a board meeting and get our CPA and all of our team and our leadership teams together from all the businesses we ran
Mm.
to say, we have to make a plan. And when you have contracts to execute and money in the bank with expectation of what you're going to do tomorrow, it's not a simple thing. You can't be like, I don't feel like working. My husband just died. You've got people that are paying their mortgages with the lifeblood they put into your company. You have to be a big person to say, today the show goes on. We don't know what tomorrow's going to look like, but today the show goes on. And so
Mm.
there are people in our community that judged our family for that. They said those people are money hungry. we did it with heart. We did it because we cared about those people. I had lots of insurance money. I was very comfortable before and even more comfortable after. So I could have gone dark and shut the lights out.
Mm,
But it was really about, at least for today, I have to take care of these people.
yeah.
Uh,
It's
and
it's
so
it's hard for people who don't run a small business. And the small business, doesn't mean like it's a small like two-person business. It's a business that where the leaders of that organization are deeply involved with the day-to-day work of the organization as well in the people's lives. Maybe not doing the job, but understanding who is in their business, and it's not, you're not 15 tiers up in a building somewhere and there's an
right.
intern on the bottom floor and you never know their name. This is where, this situation happens and your resilience is incredible. I mean, I can't even imagine what it was like to go through that. But you put the people in front, in your business in front of your almost your own need to take grief, to take time because, like you said, those people pay their mortgages. I mean, it's more than about you, and it's incredible that you were able to do that. And I just want people to understand that, while there might be, she says people in her community judged her, that comes from a place, like that's small-minded thinking. That you're a small business owner that cares about your people, and that's tough. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but the resilience there. I mean, you learned so many
You
lessons
want to hear a
leading up
funny
to it.
story?
I would
We
love to
moved
hear a
the
funny
we
story.
moved the weight loss company into the glass company, okay?
I do remember you kind of alluding to this when we were at
And
Outbound.
so we had to do like these petitions. We went and bought a massive amount of petitions that didn't gave some semblance of privacy, but we'd be weighing in Susie Homemaker and she'd be like, I'm so mad. I thought I lost more than that this week. I'm so mad. Meanwhile, we'd have a contractor walking in with dirty fingernails that would be asking about a project that we're working on. So I started calling us glass and ass. We'll help you get rid of what you don't want to have. Because people come in, if I could just get rid of my thighs or get rid of some of my butt. So I would say it to my team only, not the public, but I would say, we're now a glass and ass house. We're doing both in one world, but I kind of felt bipolar. It was, but it's that humor in the dark moments, right? And so you're finding a way to have light in a time.
Mm,
So I mean, some of the things we laughed over are morbidly crazy, but we had to find the humor in it because that's really what you have to do during those real, I call it opening the manhole to hell. You just look
yeah.
down and go, that is what your day's gonna look like. How are you gonna get around that? You gotta have a sense of humor. That's pretty
If
much the only way sometimes.
I
And
hope it doesn't hurt today.
I told all my team, do not tell anybody that comes in here that I'm the widow. Please do not tell them. And to this day, I still really like to be incognito. I like to be an undercover boss because I feel like it shifts the dynamics of that relationship in the transactions.
Mm.
So it's funny because we'll have contractors that will come in. I just had one the other day, and he came in and pointed his finger at me. I know who you are. I said, "Oh yeah, who am I?" He goes, "You own this thing." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I didn't know that." I said, "Well, what's different today than yesterday?" He goes, "I don't know. I don't think I would have kidded around with you the way I do." I said, "Exactly. That's why I don't want you to know. I want
Mm.
you. I want to be approachable. I pride myself on being approachable." And I said, "I'm just a person just like you. I mean, it just means I have more headaches when the lights go off at the end of the night." But I said, we're the same we were yesterday." He goes, "Well, I don't know. I wish I would have known." But I think generally I found that it's not an advantage in my
Yeah.
relationship with our community for them to know that. I'd rather be that way.
And speaking of vision, you have transformed the business that you inherited, from I love it, glass and ass to a different kind of business. I don't know the exact details, but I know that when you inherited it, it was maybe smaller in scale and what it was doing, and now you've gone commercial. And so
So we had some crazy. We had when I inherited the company, my husband's business model died with him. He ran it on instinct. He was a brilliant businessman. What he did, we'll never know. He had a plan, and it always worked. Uh, but what happened was when he passed, we had a third of $1 million in receivables. We had a third of $1 million in debt. We only did about $1 million in sales, so those numbers are astronomically disproportionate.
Mm, mhm.
We had supply lines cut off because I was co-owner and name only. I never ran that business, and he never ran mine. So my world was always health wellness, and his world was in the glazing company. So when I came on board, I have a really adorable daughter, and I thought she's going to get me in with some of these accounts that I don't want to lose. So I brought her with me, and she did get us in the door because she's an adorable daughter. So she, she got us in the door. And
That's
we had
why Jeb sends me on missions. Now I
yeah,
understand.
okay.
Okay, cool.
He's using you for that. So anyways, getting in the door, a lot of them were very honest and said, "You know what? We're not gonna do business with you anymore because we don't even know if you can keep this going." So I had a very infinitesimal chance of keeping this boat rowing in the right direction, and I knew that. But there's 2 main philosophies that get me through the crazy. One is a lot of times, what I really take pride in is I go, "You know what? This is my thought before bed a lot of times. There are a lot of people that quit on their goals today based on the challenges I have at hand.
Mm,
And I am going to be very excited about overcoming this challenge of the day. And I can't wait to see how this is going to unfold because it's going to be crazy. It's going to be bigger than I can imagine." And that's my one pure thought. The other thought I have is um, the only pride I can take today is I'm not quitting. Sometimes that's my other pure thought is like, I could quit. I financially am in a great place where I don't have to work. And I think that makes it all the more fun sometimes. It definitely takes a lot of the stress off. But the stress now translates over to the team, right? Because I'm getting coming up with that longevity, long-term plan. I have a succession plan I'm putting in place. The sharks have been circling a lot this year about trying to buy us. So it's becoming more real.
mm.
So when I took over the company, we were primary residential. It was shower doors, it was windshields, it was vinyl replacement windows, and a little bit on the side with commercial. And I switched it around to being a much simpler business model in due time. And that's because I didn't have the instincts of my late husband. I didn't know, this industry at all. Everything I had done, I had a health food store, my weight loss company. I had come up with a fitness concept and became franchisable with that fitness concept. The husband that I'm with now and my dad both got cancer, which is
Mm.
a quick prayer and decision maker for me to say, although I'm in the precipice of franchising, it was going to be a pound of flesh to get to that next journey level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And reckoning with my daughter, sitting down with her toe to toe and saying, okay, we had 200 people sign up for our fitness program in the summer in Maine, which is hugely unheard of. And come in for Saturday because we're going to talk about a strategy because I can't manage this right now. I got to take care of your grandfather. I got to take care of my husband. I got to figure it out. I've already lost the husband. I want to do this right. And she just looked at me and, like she does. And she said 2 things. One, your New Year's resolution is going to be not to start any new companies.
She knows you have a problem like I know you have a problem. Yeah, that's a
And she
good
said
New
the
Year's
second thing
resolution.
is, yeah, she said the second thing is my whole life I've looked at you and I waited at some points for the energy to just come on me so I could be a replica of you because I've always wanted to be like you. But she goes, that's a God given thing. You have a lot of energy, mom. I don't. I don't want to be you. I couldn't manage what you manage. I have no desire to manage what you manage. So if your plan is to, do the glazing company to your son-in-law and do your, fitness world, at that point I had 3 fitness studios, my weight loss company still, but it was a different business model version. And uh, she said, I don't want to live up to that vision. So don't do it for me.
Mm.
I think you're crazy anyway. So think about that. So, for me, I think now we are all things doors and we just refine to a point where just commercial, where everything we do, automatic doors in the door industry. So when you walk in the grocery store or a healthcare facility, those ones that operate on sensors, those all open. And we do, PMs on that, et cetera. And we just added on commercial overhead doors, like garage doors,
Yeah.
but for
Yeah, yeah.
businesses. So that's starting in 2025, and we've been holding that off for a couple of years, getting in the right place and time. So we're debt free, which is huge. My husband did not have that philosophy in his business that I did in mine, and so now we're debt free in this company, and we have grown our sales by 2.5 times what he was doing. But more importantly, our EBIT's gone up 800%, which is super cool. And the sharks are circling because this new addition to our service family is going to be our main avatar now, and
Yeah.
that was intentful, and that will explode us. So it'll be a really sexy exit plan for me. And then my team will have, some really great things happen in their career path. It'll be awesome for them too, because we're going to be choosy about who we sell to. That would be a great privilege for me to be able to pick it with them. Everybody's been like, sign an NDA, and then, we won't tell your team anything. We'll be discreet. I'm like, oh, it's very open here because we're building a platform for tomorrow that they're all going to want to be a part of. This is a
Right.
legacy business in the truest sense. They've
Yeah.
seen us the thick and thin. It's not a traditional business to them. This is my family too, you
Mm.
know?
I, congratulations. You are an incredibly successful individual, and it's so inspiring to hear your story. The resilience you have, the relentless positivity, and the vision that you employ for yourself and for your people is really really inspiring. So, Deborah Ann, Deb, thank you so much for joining us on the Sales Gravy podcast. Before we leave, where can people find you and do a little promotion of your business? Because I want people, if they're in Maine and they're listening to this and they need an overhead door, they need some glass for their sliding doors, they know where to go.
Awesome. Yeah. And thank you again for the privilege of being on here today. Talk about a cool way to make impact. It's very neat. I really feel privileged to have met your family and, have this new opportunity as a platform for my team. It's very exciting. But they can find me on Facility Door Solutions, and our website is FDS, which is the acronym for Facility Door Solutions US.com, FDSUS.com.
Awesome. Deb, thank you so much for your time. And we'll see you guys next time on the Sales Gravy podcast.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to click like and subscribe so you never miss a single video. And if you want more sales training content, go to learn.salesgravy.com.